Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I am so pleased to welcome John Layman to Word Balloon. John is a longtime friend, but, you know, this is one of those people that it's like, oh yeah, you gotta get on the show. And I mean, I've known John for, you know, at least 10 years or so, and it just never happened. And I'm glad that now we have a chance to talk, not only about Chew, of course, and Outer Darkness, but going back to the beginnings of his career at Wildstorm as an editor back when Wildstorm was still an independent Image company before DC bought it. And also even before John got into comic books, we get into his career as a journalist as well. So it's a great opportunity to talk to John about not only Chew, but also Outer Darkness, the crossover between Chew and Outer Darkness that's coming up in a few weeks, and of course his new Aftershock book, The Man Who Effed Up Time, and lots of other stuff. So really nice, welcoming conversation for John Layman in his first Word Balloon episode. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your support via Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. If you'd like to subscribe to Word Balloon and help out the cause, I greatly appreciate all the League of Word Balloon listeners. New ones popping up every week, and I thank you for your support. Is Word Balloon worth the price of a comic book to you? Is it worth $1 a month to you? If you can help out the cause, I'd really appreciate it. And you're helping me expand Word Balloon and making it bigger and better. So I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, where John Layman's The Man Who Effed Up Time is about to join the Aftershock Pantheon, along with great books from Marguerite Bennett and Raphael de la Tour, like Animosity, or Donny Cates and Gary Brown's Baby Teeth. There's Jimmy's Bastards, of course, from Garth Ennis, A Walk Through Hell from Garth and Gordon Suzuka, Dark Arc from Cullen Bunn and Juan Doe. There's, of course, Dark Red from Tim Seeley. Great books from Brian Azzarello, Paul Jenkins, so many others. Go to their website and check out the Aftershock library. I'm sure you're going to find full story descriptions, preview pages, and how to get these stories digitally or using the diamond codes to order through your local shop at aftershockcomics.com. All right, John Layman, man. Last time I saw John face-to-face was 2 years ago at C2E2 when Mark Miller came to town, and among our giant group of friends of Mark, the ones that I gravitated to were John Layman, my buddy Kyle Fegley from Comic Book Resources, and now doing great fictional writing as well, and of course Mark himself, and we had a great foreshot of all of us having a great time that weekend. Now I cropped the picture down to it being just me and Mark Miller, because I was promoting the interview that Mark and I did back in December for that episode. And Johnny Online's like, wait a minute, I'm in that picture. What the hell, damn you, Suntress, why'd you crop me out? And, he's just teasing, but that's what I love about John. He's a great guy, and he's funny and makes me laugh. You'll hear me laughing a lot in this conversation, and I'm really excited to finally, on Word Balloon, welcome John Layman to the podcast. Now, this is exciting because we've known each other for years, but this is, I believe, the first time John Layman's been on Word Balloon. Hi, John.
Yeah, hey. Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, man. A long time coming.
Yeah, I believe we met and bonded over Cerebus at a Cincinnati con.
Yeah, one of Tony's shows, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. No, and I know one of the Image presentations at San Diego, it was like me, you, Wade, and we were all in the same row and everything. I remember that as well.
Yeah.
So there you go. Very good. And of course, we just talking. We just saw each other at C2E2 a couple of years ago. Hoping to see you at one or two cons this year.
Yeah, I haven't completely got my schedule worked out. I know I'm going to Emerald City,
cool.
WonderCon, and I always do San Diego. It's my 29th year, so I can't stop.
I'm probably going to San Diego. So I don't know. I was just telling you, I'm teaching, so that's going to mess up the spring for cons for me, other than, and it's barely considered spring, C2E2, which is literally the last weekend of February.
Yeah, I remember how cold C2E2 was. I would not consider that spring in any way.
And that was like March or April when you came, and seriously, when they announced it, the end of February, even as Chicago people were like, "Is this a good idea?"
Yeah. It was.
We don't want to be here in February, Jesus. Anyway, well. Regardless, I got a lot to talk to you about. But I wonder if you think we have too much to talk about as far as current stuff, because I've never talked to you about your time at Wildstorm or anything like that. And really, I knew you kind of as an editor, but Chew is really the first time I was like, oh, that guy. Okay,
Oh, shit.
so there's a
Wow.
whole there's a whole
I've been
career. There's a whole
I've
career
been
that
in
I'm talking.
comics since 1995, and Chew hit in 2009.
There you go, man. Yeah, so
Yeah, it took a while, but editors are always kind of behind the scenes, or especially pre-internet. And but I did Planetary, I did Mark Miller's Authority, I did Astro City, some Danger Girl, Steampunk, some of the Wildstorm proper. It was it was a fun time, especially for I must have been 25, 26 years old at the time.
So how'd you get into editing then?
I grew up, pre-internet.
Sure.
And, I lived in a farm town in California, and I didn't know, I always wanted to, get comics at 7-Eleven and the corner store.
Sure.
And go to Sacramento once a month, and even went to some cons in San Francisco, and cons were way different. Anyways, in college I was an English major because, that's writing. And I wanted to be a comic book writer, and you can't find comic book writers on Twitter, and I didn't know what to do, so got an English degree from Long Beach State and then Chico State. Got the degree from Chico, and then was seeing a girl that I met in college who lived in San Diego, and she wanted us to kind of take the relationship to the next level. And she's like, well, you want to try moving in with me in San Diego?
Wow.
And I'm like, ooh, isn't that where that comic convention is? and so I took the leap, and I got a newspaper job. I was I was Jimmy Olsen. I was a news assistant.
That's great. Which paper in San Diego was it?
San Diego Union Tribune, which is
absolutely.
paper there.
Yes, indeed.
And I sort of had like the nerd beat because I started freelancing music, and when Judge Dredd had a movie, I knew it was based on a comic book, so I could write a feature article. Or when Spawn had an HBO cartoon,
sure.
And then when San Diego Con rolled around, they asked if I could write something, and they're always, what's the local angle? Call Jim Lee's studio. He's hot, and, tell us what the new trends are. So I think 3 years in a row, I probably, talked to people from the studio and, wrote stuff for the paper, and they knew that I was, kind of knew my stuff in comics. Sure. And they wrote me. I mean, they called me and said, hey, do you want to, try being an assistant editor? And it was awful. It was a cut and pay. It was a drudge job. It was just completely miserable. And after 3 months, the paper was trying to get me back, and they lured me with a monthly comic column in the book section.
Wow.
And this was
wow.
God, this must have been like 94, 95, 95, 96.
Interesting.
And they didn't have comics didn't have columns and book sections.
Right.
Back. And I did it for a year, and then Wildstorm called me back, and they're like, you know what? We should have brought you in as an editor, not an assistant editor. We want you back. So I left the paper a second time and went to Wildstorm a second time.
Wow.
And it was much better as an editor. As I went from copy boy at the paper to sort of copy boy at a comic book company, but got paid a lot less. And then once you became an editor, there were some actual responsibilities, and it was paradise because money was still flowing. This was this was when John Nee would cancel books at 35,000 because that was a flop. And they'd lay down the company credit card at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and open up the bar across the street, and you could still get hammered on the job, and be inappropriate and have crazy parties, and then Jim sold it to DC, and suddenly it went from this freewheeling anything we want to do we can do because Jim says, to we're DC now, we're a bureaucracy, everything has to be filled out and signed out in triplicate, and it became a lot less fun. But I had always wanted to be a writer, and by then I'd done it for like 5 years. And
5 years in total, both Jim's Wildstorm and DC Wildstorm.
Well, Total, yeah. Total of editing for 5 years.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Well, it's the writing's on the wall. If real career mobility is in New York, and I'm a West Coast boy anyway, and I don't want to be an editor forever, and it became a lot less fun under DC. So I made the jump to freelance, and then just kind of did one gig to the next for a lot of years.
So what, give me some highlights of, well, actually there's a lot to unpack of what you told me. I'm interested when you had the book column. Did you do it, or did they just offer it to you?
Oh, no, yeah, I did.
So you did do it. Okay.
It ran for a year. And
so yeah, what kind of, because I a lot of times you think of the 90s and it really is that Image time and stuff. I mean, obviously there were preachers and things like that were coming out. What were you featuring back then?
That's what I was covering. I remember I got to interview Neil Gaiman, before he was, a name on marquee lights,
Right.
But before people knew that Sandman was going to be literature, and when, this guy, Jeff Smith came out with this cool kids book named Bone,
Sure.
I'd do a feature on him, and, talked to Wildstorm a lot, and, I got to do it I did a thing on Cerebus as it was winding up, and that was before sort of Dave Sim had completely, alienated everybody.
There you go.
But it was kind of indie focused, but also, when I don't know, I think Death of Superman might have predated it, but whenever there was like a big,
Marvel's Kingdom Come, anything like that?
Yeah. If there were events like that, and I think I covered Astro City before I even edited it. So
that's cool. That's great.
It was kind of neat. But I've always been kind of an indie guy more than a big two guy. So you'd have to cover the big events, and they came a lot less frequently then.
Right. Sure.
So I don't know if it was not Secret Invasion, like whatever the DC one, Invasion was.
I remember.
I can't even remember that sort of stuff, but whatever sort of the big two events back then were.
That's what I was curious about, if there was, just like, artsy stuff, or if the mainstream was in there as well. Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was, and that was just the side job. I worked in business, and I did the stock charts and, compiled, meeting listings and all sort of the news assistant stuff, but, kind of supplemented my income with, record reviews and concert reviews and, what I called the geek beat, all the kind of nerdy stuff that came along.
That's great, and it's great to have been able to do all the music stuff as well. I know working at XRT, one of the rock stations here in town, at the same time I was working at the sports talk station. Oh my God, I took full advantage of that. Got to see a lot of amazing shows.
A Ramon and Joan Jett and the Cramps and
wow.
Got to go to a lot of shows, and some of the other people I interviewed, like Dick Clark, not for music, but just, I was writing for the features department.
The broadcast mogul. Yeah, man. Jesus.
I did Spalding Gray, and what was weird is we went on a really long tangent about suicide. And
wow.
And some of it even made the paper, and of course, years later he would kill himself, which was kind of bizarre.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I've swimming in Cambodia. I've certainly seen that, and I've enjoyed when he's popped up in things like, I love him in the Paper, the Michael Keaton movie that Ron Howard made.
Yeah, he was a neat little bit actor, but his soliloquy stuff, or the one man shows were really cool.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. That's cool. That's amazing, man. That's great. Jeez.
Yeah, it was an interesting sort of pre-comic book life. And we've talked about it because you were in newspapers too. It was like I was there for Kurt Cobain dying and like the OJ trial, and like it was like the movies where like the newspaper people, you'd gather around the Bloomberg, sort of the telex, and we'd get the news before everyone else. But you'd also be like surrounding, watching the TV, and watching news break in a newsroom is really cool.
Yes.
And I worked with some old school reporters, and I think when I worked at the paper in the beginning, you could still smoke in the newsroom.
Sure.
And there was this crusty old guy who named Don Botter he was a business columnist, and he would like kind of root out city corruption, and he'd be on the phone and he's like, I'm gonna nail you to the wall, you son of a bitch, and smoking his cigar or whatever, and it was just like, it was old school movie stuff,
Yeah, no, exactly, man. No, the newspapers were the guardians of the people, man, and fighting the muckrakers. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you see, I wasn't actually newspapers. I was in sports radio.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
Everything you've described was still happening there. If anything, now I am in news radio. I'm doing traffic reporting, but I am in the newsroom when stories break. And yeah, I really,
it's a little different because news breaks on Twitter now instantaneously, and you catch up. Before that, news wasn't as instantaneous as it is now. I mean, granted, you still have the cable channels, but the internet has changed that.
Yeah, and like you said, the wire machines. Good Lord, I really from high school to early, even DJ years, we had a news teletype in our room, and when stories broke in the 80s and early 90s, we were surrounded by the teletype machine. It was amazing. I remember watching the round by round descriptions of the Marvin Hagler Tommy Hearns fight, the 3 rounds. And, and the bulletin bell going off, and I was working at a music station, but I was able to follow the fight. Because I was on the air and everything, and round by round, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch this in 3 weeks. This is going to be amazing.
The big thing for me was like I said, Kurt Cobain was like a one-day thing.
Yeah.
And but the OJ trial, spanned months. And then another big one I was there for was the LA riots, which, was kind of connected to the OJ trial. I mean, there was a lot of, racial tension in Los Angeles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, we were far enough away that, we weren't Los Angeles, but close enough that we still had, reporters. So it was a really interesting time to be a young person learning about stuff. There's some books in there.
I hear you, man, and we covered the OJ trial as well at my sports station, and of course when Michael Jordan, the gambling situation, and when he retired, all that stuff was swirling around.
Yeah.
No, I know what you, and also, God, and we're talking literally 2 days after Kobe Bryant's death and everything, and I covered many live or current and former great athletes' death, and believe me, my sports news gene kicked in as soon as I heard everything on Sunday. Yeah. So you can't help it; it's in your blood. You especially if you've done the job and everything. So tough stuff, man.
And my wife, I met her at the paper, and we're
cool.
still, so it's hard not to. I spend way too much on the time on the news still, especially in these, when the news cycle changes 3 times a day.
Yeah.
But we're both news people still.
Yep. I hear you, man. No, I feel the same way. That's there you go, Jenny. That's why we bonded. Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about some of the current books, because there are so many. And, we'll wrap around as far as whatever you could talk about and tease in the future and stuff. But I know, my guys at Aftershock, they're like, you got to talk to Layman about the man who effed up time. I'm like, sure.
Well,
I was happy to talk to John.
Looking at my desktop, I've got 6 approved books in motion.
Cool.
And I've got the man who effed up time with Aftershock, and this is my second thing following Eleanor and the Egret with Sam Keith.
Cool.
Which we were super proud of it, but it was Sam is not a speed demon, and Aftershock was really patient with us, and there's also this weird kind of European. Have you read it?
No, go on, tell me.
Well, it's this very kind of like, I was coming off Chew where I had just killed everybody and it was just awful. And, Sam does all these kind of dark things about people, usually women, being violated.
Yeah.
And
totally true.
We got an Aliens book together.
Okay.
And I'm like, Sam, let's go against type, man. Let's do something kind of happy and whimsical. And, it's not a YA book because it's kind of too weird and ethereal, but it's kind of an adult fairy tale, and it turned out really nice. But again, Aftershock was super patient because it got delayed as it went on, and I kind of figured, I owe you Mike Martz has supported me my entire career at DC and Marvel when he's edited there. And I thought, I'm going to bring you guys something fun and a little more commercial. And so I just had this, I think the title came first, which is rare for me. And I thought that the title was so hilarious that we should get a book out before someone else steals it. And I just took the idea of time travel and just took it to gonzo extremes where this, every issue the world just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And it's about this lab assistant who just goes back a week. He meets himself in a bar, and the guy's like, "No, your life kind of sucks. Your girlfriend left you for this jerk. You're always broke. You're, missing this promotion. If you just went back just 5 days and, bought this lottery ticket and, bought your girlfriend flowers at this point and, do just a couple little things, you could change, your entire life."
Okay.
So he goes back 5 days, and when he comes back, dinosaurs roam the earth, and there's samurais, and there's all this crazy stuff. And the cyborg time police show up, and they're like, "Look, dude, you effed up time. If you've got 24 hours to correct it, or we go back to meet baby you, and we're gonna, you're never going to exist." And of course, again, this guy went back just a few days. He couldn't have possibly have done this. So I've kind of described it as like a time travel whodunit, or
Sure.
a butterfly effect noir, because he has to repair it, but he didn't do it, so he's got to figure out what exactly happened. So
Cool.
and like I said, each issue gets crazier, and it's fun without being I guess too silly. I'm just it's a weird balance. And they hooked me up with this guy Carl Mostert, who I brought in an artist, and then the artist I brought in was having some family stuff, and then Mike recommended him, and Mike's got pretty good taste in artists. He
Sure.
hooked me up with Jason Fabok on Batman, and now Jason's a superstar. So it's like I trust Mike, and this Carl guy is pretty great, and he's a hard worker, and I think DC's already poaching him.
Is this a 5-issue story?
Yeah, 5 issues, one and done, and just have a nice little book on my bookshelf, and who knows, I'm not ruling out sequels, but it's just conceived as a 5-issue thing right now.
That's cool. That's great. I love a good time travel story. That's excellent. So, and a lot of our friends have been doing good time travel stuff. Mark's got Chrononauts, of course, and I like Tony Fleece's book as well. I think.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. And
Stuart Moore, Bronze Age Boogie.
Yes, indeed. Yes, you're right about that. That's funny, and it reminds me I need to talk to Stuart as well about everything he's doing lately and stuff. Very cool. No, that's excellent, man. It sounds great, and I know it comes out February 12th, or final cutoff is February?
It must be final cutoff, because we just turned in final files, and is it a February book? The great thing about me not, if it was Chew and I was putting it out myself and doing the production, I could tell you what minute it was coming out. But when I have an editor and someone else doing it, it's like, well, they also, they don't necessarily tell me. So it's like, yeah, I think, I don't,
Well,
I just know that it's gone out of my hands now.
Well, I know I'll talk to Steve Rotterdam before when I put this out, and I will definitely in the intro or outro say yes. It's either again coming out on the 12th, or that's when the final cutoff is.
And that occurs to me. It's probably not the smartest marketing on my part, but no one's accused me of being the smartest guy.
No problem, man. Well, that's good. Well, and truly, I thank you for sending me the first volume of Outer Darkness, because I think it's that, and she was like this as well. It's you've got that great humor tone that does run through your work and everything. And I think especially like Outer Darkness, I really enjoyed it. I'm a massive sci-fi fan, and especially the classic tropes. And I think you hit on a lot of good classic tropes, but not in a too reverent way, or too honoring way. They're great. They're great springboards
Oh
for
yeah,
you to
you
get
haven't
into
even
some
read
great
the
humor.
second arc yet, so you know that we're calling it first season. You know, the first 2 trades, and it was conceived of 3 seasons. Now we're doing, and I have to admit, when I pitched Outer Darkness, I actually pitched Chew Outer Darkness along with it because I have a story that I can't spoil, but it's so brilliant it has to be done. Talking about sci-fi tropes, and it was kind of a challenge because they didn't want to do the crossover right away because they didn't want Outer Darkness. They wanted Outer Darkness to stand on its own.
Sure,
but now, you know, it's a tough time for books, and Outer Darkness hasn't. The sales haven't set the world on fire, although I think it's doing okay. But they've got high hopes for the crossover, and you know, if we could just get a fraction of the Chew fans to read this thing that most of them don't know about, you know, maybe we'll get the 36 issues planned. But yeah, but the Outer Darkness season 1 ended, and then you know we're taking a little break, and then doing this 3-issue Chew Outer Darkness, and then you know. Ideally, we resume with season 2.
Okay, so the way Volume 1 ends is not related to Chew Out of Darkness. That's a separate story. Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
It actually there's a little note in because it's conceived like a classic sort of TNG where it's everything builds on each other, but they're also like sort of in the middle of each arc as these kind of standalone episodes.
Yes.
Where you know now you've got IDW comics doing like, well, here's a Deep Space Nine, and this falls, you know, between season 3 or 4, or even between this and that episode.
Yep.
So I've got a little note on Chew Outer Darkness is like, hey, this happens between Outer Darkness 6 and 10. You know, so you know it's set in the first season, and this is around where it falls.
That's hilarious. That's cool. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned TNG because honestly. If people listening haven't checked out Outer Darkness, you've got the framework of a Star Trek-y kind of crew, but not yes and no. I mean, familiar enough that they're the tropes. But I mean, you get into Chariots of the Gods stuff. You get into other sci-fi phenomenon. You know,
it's following the genre of a ship on a continuing mission. You know, with a crew. Right. But it's got a lot of like black. Someone described it as satanic Star Trek.
Yes, that's good. Sure,
that works. Or Eldritch horror Star Trek, and it's definitely it's Event Horizon. If Event Horizon was good, and a Star Trek show every week, it's definitely it's half horror and half Star Trek, and I can't completely play it straight. So there's a lot of black humor that kind of slips in there.
Yeah, that's exactly. But that's the thing, man.
It's not as overtly wacky as as a Chew. Chew got kind of silly towards the end.
Sure.
Which was also to sort of offset the tragedy.
I understand. Yeah.
You there?
And that's that's what I was going to say is there is still action and consequences in Out of Darkness, but like you said, there's this thread of humor in there as well. And to me, it's like if like a Star Trek novel crashed through the rest of the sci-fi section in a bookstore and touched out all these other stories and stuff. Because that's what it's like. It's like the ship is really just kind of like going through trope after each mission is like kind of a different trope and everything in a good way.
There's one issue in the second arc that I love. It's basically these haunted. They go to they find this ship where everyone's been murdered, and there's just knives lying around everywhere. Different kinds of blades and scimitars but you look in one place and the knife that was there is gone, and there's a new thing somewhere else, and there's just like all the and basically as soon as you touch the knife, you go stab crazy. So it's like it's a haunted stab infection, and the way season 2 ends, TPB2 leading into season 2, the first 12 issues, it's conceived very TNG, ship on a continuing mission.
Yes.
And then at the end of, I don't know if I should spoil this. I'm willing to, but I don't know if I should. End of issue 12, it becomes a very different book. And season 2 will be radically different than season 1, just because the status quo is so shook up. And the way I intended it was 3 12-issue seasons where, there's a very different status quo each season.
Did I read the first 12 then, or did I read the first?
I read the first 6.
All right, that's what I thought. I read the first 6. Okay.
And I don't know if you noticed this. You probably issues 5 and 6 we did a double side. We did a connecting cover for issue 5 and issue 6, but then I wrote it as one 40-page story. So when it's collected, the last story you read when they're crashed on the ice planet is a 40-pager, and it's supposed to feel like the mid-season kind of, like the two episode, like, the
winter
into a Borg, the 2 hour special.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it may not be obvious when you're reading it. Collected issues 5 and 6 together, so it would feel like more climactic and more eventful.
I got you. That's cool. No, I regardless. I mean, no, it's a great story, and a good ending point for even issue 6 and everything. And that makes me absolutely want to read volume 2. I enjoy the concept.
I will tell you when we're off the air, because I just have to say I just have to say 2 words, and it will sum up True Outer Darkness. But I don't want to spoil it. Like I'm not telling the world what it is, but I'll tell you.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's cool. So, when do we have a start date for True Outer Darkness?
Yeah, it's March. 3 issues: March, April, May, and cool. They're hard at work at issue 2. Issue 1 lettering. So Rob Guillory is doing kind of a framing sequence. He's doing covers. Afu's doing, and Afu's so freaking amazing.
Afu's doing Outer Darkness as well for people who,
he's the Outer Darkness artist, and I just think he's a genius. And I think if more people knew who he I think he's going to be people are going to look back at this fondly, and I think he's going to be huge because I just think he's a genius.
He reminds me of Oming in the best ways.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, I mean, I really,
texture with the colors.
Say it again.
That he brings so much texture with the colors.
Agreed.
Because I was showing people early on in Outer Darkness, I'd show them the black and whites, and I don't want to say they're sparse, but every line counts, and they'd be like, "Oh, these are really nice layouts." It's like, no, those are finished pages. But then he brings so much, just sort of texture and feeling in the colors because he colors himself.
That's cool. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was weird because this was kind of originally written for Rob, and I actually did some rewriting. But like I said, there's some pages that Rob does that starts off in the Chew world, and when they end up in the Outer Darkness world, and it fits from a story perspective, which is even better. But there's Afu pages and there's Rob pages, at least in the first issue, and then I think in issue 2 and 3, Rob just does 1 page and a cover. And it's mostly Afu, but it's really other than Chew Revival. When Mike Norton did tackle Tony, there's never been any other artist doing Chew characters, in canon or in an actual sequential book. And it's really it's weird and awesome to see Afu's take on Rob's characters.
That's awesome, man. That's excellent. Very cool. So March is the crossover. That's great. Yep. Well, people should pick up the volume 1 at least of Outer Darkness too. So 6 through 12, have they come out yet or no?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Volume 1 is 1 through 6.
Oh, excuse me.
7 through 12 is volume 2, which came out last month.
Oh, okay. All right. There we go.
Stupidly don't have a PDF of it. I could say.
Oh, no worries, man. No. And shame on me for good. Gives me a reason to want to read volume 2. That's excellent.
I've got 2 books I can't talk about. I will say that returning to the Chew world for Chew Outer Darkness really kind of awoke something in me. I needed a break from that world.
Sure.
And there will be a return to it, but I can't be any more specific than that. And then I've got another sort of a work for hire crossover that's really fun. I'm doing for a company that's not announced yet. And then the last book I'm doing is Bermuda with IDW and Nick Bradshaw.
Yeah, talk about Bermuda, sure.
And it's kind of Commandy, kind of Tarzan. It's
I like them both. Go on.
Yeah, me too. And it's a genre I've always wanted to tackle, and it's basically everyone who's gotten lost in the Bermuda Triangle has ended up on this island. So
Fun.
there's been and it's named after this girl named Bermuda whose parents flew through 16 years ago, and she's kind of grown up on the island, kind of half savage, but you've got sailors who have washed up there, and you had 400 years ago had pirate ships going through the Bermuda Triangle, and so they don't all end up in the same time. The pirates who landed there 300 years ago formed a pirate community, but they don't have any technology. They haven't evolved. So you've got weird creatures on the island, but you've also got pirates, and you've got military people who washed up during the Cold War. So it's like this just crazy fun adventure mix of crazy animals, lots of lizards and dinosaur-like things, and pirates and natives, and then you've got this girl who's found a kid her age has recently crashed, so he's kind of like the POV. He's the stranger in a strange land, and she's helping him sort of navigate this weird world.
That's great. So they have like pockets of
very Tarzan.
So they have like pockets of, like you said, the pirate community. You got the Cold War military community, and then you've got Savage Land stuff all over the place as well.
Yeah. It's it's just high adventure, and
sure.
And Nick's art is so fantastic, and that comes out in May, and it's 4 issues, and we're hoping because he I don't know, this dude keeps really busy, and we're hoping just do. In a regular trade, it'd be nice if we could get 4 issues a year and just have a trade of her continuing adventures.
Very cool. And when does Bermuda hit?
I believe May.
Okay.
They're doing the solicitation stuff, so
that's cool. You know what I just saw in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if you've ever seen this stuff, but I figure we're close enough in the same age. You might have the Doug McClure 70s movies, like The Land That Time Forgot, and
of course,
and The People That Time Forgot. Yeah, it was just on. I am so close to cutting the cord on cable, but then they sucker me back with stupid stuff like that. And honestly, I was just cracking up. It was great watching. Those are so much better than, unfortunately, the Doc Savage movie of the same time period. Likely Company.
I've mostly forgotten that now. But yeah, those were a lot of fun. That was the same era for me growing up as like the Harryhausen movies. So,
absolutely, yes.
That stuff is just candy for a little kid. If I showed it to my son now, he'd just be like, this is old and stupid. Everything's got to move at a different pace now.
No, I agree. That's funny because as we've danced around the subject of Comic-Con, San Diego specifically, my first San Diego was very late in the game, for relatively speaking, 2006. But I got to meet Ray Harryhausen and Brad Bird.
Oh, wow.
They were together just walking the floor.
Well, okay.
Because it was nothing to them. They'd been doing it already for 30+ years. So they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I met Jack Kirby and Will Eisner walking the floor.
Oh, that's great.
And Jack Kirby put off an air where it didn't seem like he wanted to give an autograph, but I had an autograph book, and I wasn't going to ask for a sketch because I was clearly the older guys, and I'm a 23-year-old kid or whatever, but I did get a Will Eisner autograph in my book, which was nice.
That's excellent.
I can remember another time just browsing books, and I look over and there's Gan Wilson, and I'll tell you this, John.
Who's Gan Wilson? Help me. I don't know Gan Wilson.
Gan Wilson did the kind of a lot of Playboy cartoons.
Oh, cool.
It was always like featuring like Death and Baby New Year and stuff. He just
funny.
passed away recently.
I'm gonna have to look him up. I spoke to this great woman whose name right now is escaping me, who's been writing 3 volumes of the history of Playboy as a publishing entity, and then also did a whole thing on. It was just Playboy Laughs. Half of it was about the comedy clubs, and the other half was about the illustrators. So I'm sure he's in the book.
If you saw his stuff, you would recognize it immediately.
Sure,
you're just having a brain
fart. But
you'll know immediately who I'm talking about because his style was like nothing else. But my first San Diego, I moved to San Diego. I was working at the paper, and my first San Diego, I went there on my lunch hour, parked on the street in the gas lamp, which was like all hookers, and it was like you were scared to leave your car. It must have been like the first year at the convention center. But I parked my car on the street and thinking, am I going to have my wheels when I get back? Ran in, paid $5 at the door, and saw the entire show at my lunch hour. And then went back to work, and no one knew I was gone. And then I just watched the convention get bigger and bigger and bigger.
I bet. Jesus Christ, that's hilarious. That's fantastic, man.
It did sort of change after the Spider-Man movie. Like there was a big, between like 2001 and 2005, it became what it is today. Sort of Hollywood Con, but it used to be, there'd be Mark Hamill there, or George Takei, and you just didn't care because that was a Comic Con. And now I'm like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I get a picture with this or that person?
It's funny because even in 2006, Samuel L. Jackson was walking the main floor, wasn't disguised or anything like that. Yeah. This was Snakes on a Plane year, and Rosario Dawson was working with the 12 gauge guys.
Yeah, it's become different, and I think part of it, it's you got the Hall H with thousands of people, and Game of Thrones or whatever the biggest thing in entertainment is.
Yes, Avengers, yeah, crazy. That's
but I still love it, and I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, me too, man.
I'm going on year 29, and I don't plan on stopping.
Well, the great thing, thankfully, is, and I make this point every year, is if you want the Hall H experience, it's there for you. But if you really want like the old-fashioned, as much as big as it is, they still have panels where, hey, it's we're celebrating Edgar Rice Burroughs' centennial. Okay, great. Stuff like that for
it's so big.
Stuff.
There's something for everything.
Yeah,
something for everyone.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, because I mean, the people who don't go are like, well, it's not about comics anymore. It's like, no, I get that, but you're only getting like the CNN coverage of it. Yeah, you're not really there, and you'd be very happy.
A show that big, even if it's only 20 or 15% comics, that's still tens of thousands of people. And it's bigger than any show in your hometown.
And a couple dozen, and literally like at least a dozen comic book related panels a day for 4 or 5 days. So I mean, it's like, everything's fine, man. No, it's still great. I mean, so. Well, I wanted to ask, because I know you're obviously a big Star Trek fan. Are you watching the new stuff?
Oh yeah. I was waiting on pins and needles for Picard.
Me too.
And it did not let me down. I had never watched. You pick up the original series, and of course I had seen it on the TV, but I started a dedicated watch of this last spring
of the original series.
Every damn show in chronological order.
Everything.
So I finished TOS, and
right.
There's some clunkers, and yes,
sure.
It's slow, but I was really surprised at how sort of witty and engaging Shatner was, and how much sort of like humor and likability, and the stuff between Bones and
Spock.
It was a good show, and now
it's fun.
Now I'm watching. I'm at season 7 of TNG, which is pure comfort food.
Sure.
And Deep Space Nine is my favorite, so I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Voyager, I really kind of lost interest in, and I'm going to make myself watch it. And then I've never watched Enterprise.
Interesting. Wow. I'll be curious what you think of Enterprise. I always say a third of Voyager is interesting, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because I mean a third of it is. I mean, it at that point it was so derivative of Next Generation.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was tough to be original, but there really are, a couple dozen exceptional episodes, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's clunkers in the Next Generation too. So
of course.
that's what you put on in sort of the, well, I don't have to pay completely attention to this, but then every once in a while there's just one that's like completely stand out.
Absolutely. Well, and also again, this is they were pumping out like 22 to 26 episodes a year.
Yeah, I mean, TV has gotten better because they sort of realize you don't have to do that, and I would much rather have 13 good episodes of a show than 26, and then have to wade through crap.
Absolutely, man. Well, and honestly, I still think that's kind of one of the issues I have to a degree with the CW shows, because they are still 20 plus episodes a year, and it's like, you got a lot of waiting for MacGuffin in those things where you're just like, what's going on? Can we get to the climax? We all know where this is heading. I love the crossover, by the way. I thought the new Crisis was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
I don't watch any superhero TV.
That's cool. Well, I'll stick to Star Trek then. Let's get back to Star Trek. Have you liked Discovery?
Well, yes, but sometimes it drives me crazy. And then I realize, wait, I don't have to like 100% of it, know?
No, I understand that too. And I'm still watching every week, and hoping for better.
I enjoy it more than I don't. Like, they spent so much time, like, the first half of last season, like, oh, Spock. It's like, yes. And, but, overall, like, they still do good stuff. And, and then I think, well, the first season of every other show was kind of rocky, and it takes a while to find its footing.
That is very true of every Star Trek, yes. Except ironically for the original series, when I really do think they kind of, I mean, there's a couple clunkers, but again, there's a lot of great stuff in that first season.
Yeah. But I was also angry because I wanted my show about the future to show the future. I didn't want another prequel show.
Agreed.
And it was a little too reliant on Spock and,
Spock's sister.
Captain Pike and all that. But I did. I mean, Captain Pike was awesome.
I agree with you.
Now I'm happy that they're moving on to new territory, and now I've got, Picard. So,
and you enjoyed the first episode.
Oh, fucking yes. I don't want to say how much I enjoyed it. Like I was just tears of joy the entire show.
I'll tell you, I watched it immediately again, like within the day of seeing it the first time. Everything that everyone has been saying about Skywalker, I could say about Star Trek Picard in terms of my anticipation for it when it finally happened, and I immediately watched it again within hours. And,
but yeah, it hit all the notes, and it still offered a lot of surprises. And the thing about Patrick Stewart is like he's such a commanding.
Yes.
He's great in everything.
Yes, and I mean, no, you're right, and I'm really I like it a lot, and there's still a little bit of writing where I'm just like,
yeah,
and really I do it more in Discovery than I have on Picard, but and certainly only one episode. And I'll be honest, I really liked Discovery's pilot. I thought the pilot was, and there's still stupid things in the pilot, but I did enjoy it, and I liked Jason Isaacs a lot in the first season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it got a little creepy at the end, but that's okay. He's a bad guy, so let it be creepy.
And the other thing is, these shows are gorgeous. I mean,
they're absolutely, yes. That goes without saying.
HD on a big screen TV, and the effects system these days.
Yeah.
We're in a great place for TV.
We are, but you know something, John? I demand a little bit better from my Star Trek, especially when it is surrounded by so many well-written shows. And I feel like we're getting kind of hokey Star Trek. But I've made this point a million times on the show.
You talking about Discovery?
Yeah. And I'll even say little bits of Picard. Overall, I still love it, and I'm excited, and I love the direction. And I do think it's a vast improvement over what they've done in 2 seasons of Discovery. But
I would also say consider the source material. I mean, if you're, it's not like the source material was devoid of hokiness.
Oh, you mean Star Trek itself?
All of it, yeah.
I understand that. I do understand that, and there are certainly cringe moments. But I think when you're focusing on one story, you could tell a better story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They made the choice of following all the other, television trends these days and saying, okay, we're telling you one story a season, but there's just I don't know, man. I mean, I don't like a lot of the characters on Discovery, and I don't blame the actors. It's the way they're written, and I don't agree with the. There's a lot of lesser people that seem to be able to get into the Federation than what we've seen in the past. These don't seem to be the best of the best that we're watching.
But, my bottom line, because I do not watch a lot of TV these days, is do I want to come back next week? And I do. And
that's cool.
I know some of that's just the franchise pulling me back, but, I'm just happy to have new Star Trek on the air.
Dude, I truly feel the same way, and I remain hopeful every week that I'll, like it better, or, that I'll, just like it better, I suppose. And again, loved the first episode of Picard. My minor quibbles aside, I'm like, no, it's great to see Patrick Stewart again. I love the character.
Let me ask you this. If you could pick two characters to return, who would they be?
That aren't currently? Oh, yeah. God, well, anyone from Deep Space Nine. I love Deep Space Nine so much. I'd love to see Worf back in general, and I think he still has. I was really excited when there were rumors that he was pitching Paramount on doing a new show.
Yeah.
And who else? That's a good question. Dax, always, given the nature of Dax, I mean, she's kind of like Doctor Who in terms of,
true.
You can always have a new host for the Dax
This is
symbiote.
going to maybe surprise you, but I would say Worf because he was my favorite, and I think watching TNG, I think one of the wonderful things about it is they never winked at the audience. They were utterly sincere and everything, and Worf was a funny character, but
hilarious. Yes,
it was the character, not the actor making fun of it. I would like to see where Wesley is.
I agree with you, and I kind of hope in the second season of Picard we do see where Wesley is, because he certainly went off on his little vision quest to be a space being or whatever.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with that. That would be cool, and also it'd be nice redemption for Will Wheaton. I think, and I think he deserves it, because it sounds like he really got fucked over when he was a kid and wanted to do. I want to say Valmont, the John Milius, kind of like there were two different Dangerous Liaisons, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
And I believe it was Valmont that, not John Milius, Milos Forman wanted him in that. And the producers wouldn't let him go.
Yeah,
and they're like, what?
Kid from Stand By Me and just became the joke character from Star Trek. And I think he's sort of aged gracefully into, I think he's one of these rare child actors who's sort of made peace with,
agreed.
With things and come out the better for it.
Agreed. Absolutely. No, and when he gets a chance to act and stuff, he always does a really good job. I think you're right. And I think he's funny, and I think he's capable of decent drama as well. So,
Boy, give me a Quark on there. That would be fantastic.
Quark, I agree. I know, and isn't it a shame Rene Auberjois, and I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but Odo. I love how he would do. Have you seen his convention sketches?
No.
He would post them on Twitter. He would draw a bucket, and it would have a thought bubble over it, and it would have the person's name. So, hi, John, and then Rene Auberjois, and then
they
quotes
lost
Odo.
Year too. I mean, it was a bad year for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, poor Nog. Yes, indeed.
He had kidney problems in real life.
That's what I heard.
I remember. There was like a Kickstarter, because we live in America and not even celebrities can afford health care.
Yeah.
And then, then he was, went into whatever, kidney failure, and then he was gone.
Yeah, I know. And just a couple of years younger than me, believe me, I felt horrible about it.
Yep.
And it sounded like he had a tough health life his whole life and everything. So, it's rough. Well, I am optimistic about where Picard is going. And we'll see, third season of Discovery, we'll see. Talos 4 episode was the only one that really, I will say that I really did like from the second season.
Well, the problem with Picard is Patrick Stewart's 80-something.
I know.
Well,
they're going to have to hurry. I know, for real. Seriously.
Well, okay. I had heard a rumor. Should I share this?
Sure.
Okay. I had heard a rumor that he's going to die, and then they're going to name the ship Picard, and it's going to follow a ship named Picard. And that may just be like weird internet speculation because I don't have it from any kind of source other than some idiot said it on the internet. But the dude is 81. The clock is ticking.
Sure. No, and I've heard those same rumors as well that whenever it ends, it would end with his death.
Yeah, but
that,
he's inviting Whoopi Goldberg onto season 2. I doubt he's inviting her to ride on the ship named after him. So
no, I agree, and I think I certainly hope it doesn't happen in the first season, and it would be shocking if it did, especially the way he's moving around. And I mean, I don't know, man. That'll be very interesting, and I am excited for Lower Decks.
Yeah,
and I can't say I'm excited about the Section 31 show. I really hate the way they've been playing Section 31. It makes no sense. It's such a shame because it was so great in the original shows, and even shame on me, but they even allude to it in Enterprise and everything. So it's like it's an interesting part of the Federation's history that they really dumbed down. And
okay, here's an interesting question for you. What do you think of the Orville?
I love the Orville.
Same here.
And the first season had its clunks as well. The second season knocked me out. Oh, very excited for.
I think what's his name, Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane guy.
MacFarlane, yeah.
I think he had to sell it to Fox as hey, I'm the funny guy. So
yes,
the first few episodes were like, it wasn't the voice where I think he wanted to write Star Trek, and I feel like the Orville is a Star Trek show not set in the Star Trek universe. And Discovery is set in the Star Trek universe and sometimes doesn't feel like a Star Trek show.
I agree. No, absolutely, man. Well, and then there was a great wild hair rumor that if all this stuff fails, and it doesn't look like it is failing, that CBS would sell Star Trek to NBC Universal and Seth MacFarlane would take it over. And I'm like, okay, wow, that's all. Well, because I don't know what the future of the Orville is. Season 3 is going to be on Hulu. And it was a Fox product, and now it's a Disney product. I don't know what that means.
Well, so again, I've been doing this rewatch of TNG, and there are episodes that are straight out lifted from he it's almost plagiarism, but then he puts a modern spin on it, and I can't remember now because I'm being recorded. But there are straight Orville episodes where he just took the exact same premise.
Oh yeah,
and then
the two-parter with the their robot crewmate that his people went bad and stuff.
Yeah.
That totally could have been a Borg
the guy
episode.
who's kind of based on Worf.
Yes, I love that guy. Yeah, the Bortus.
Yeah, Bortus. That's right.
Bortus, who he and his mate they start smoking. But that's the thing. Like, I agree with you. Like, sometimes the humor was too much. I thought in the second season, they definitely found their balance. That or the warrior women race that finds 9 to 5 uplifting, and it becomes their war anthem and everything.
my biggest complaint about the Orville is they got rid of the one girl who I guess Harlan's dating in real life, and she's like 20 or something, and then they replaced her with sort of a look-alike from the same race with the same qualities, and it's like, come on, this is you're sci-fi. This is an opportunity to show us something new.
I wondered if that was to save money in terms of that they maybe shot exterior long shots with the girlfriend and that they could match them. That was honestly that's where my brain went. But no, I agree with you, and it's tough then because man, she's really got a tough job. It's not like when Coach died and they put Woody Harrelson in Cheers.
Yeah,
so it's because it'd be better if it wasn't totally, or even Esri. Esri Dax was so different from Jadzia that I loved Esri in the 7th season. I thought she was great.
Circling back to Outer Darkness, when I pitched this, there was no Orville, there was no Discovery, there was there's all this Star Trek stuff, and it's like, when it was about to come out, it started appearing. I'm like, will this help the book, or is it Star Trek saturation? And I think the challenge for Outer Darkness is there's too many damn books every month. You skip previews for a month and you miss out on a ton.
This is true, and I was going to ask you the big question about where you think the market is right now as someone that's had good success with creator-owned books and stuff.
Well, like Chew. I don't know if there could never be, is there ever going to be another? Don't count Saga, don't count Walking Dead. Those guys are freaks. But like, I don't think there could be another Chew that ran 60 issues. I feel like 30 is the new 60.
That's John. I've been asking that question since Chew, and even during. And I would ask that of Nick Spencer about Morning Glories and Revival. Mike and Celia and everything. No, I would do the same thing and say, what's the new cutoff and everything. Well, and let's not forget, just a couple of years earlier with Vertigo, it was 100 issues.
Yeah. And I blame the big two for this because they revamp Marvel so fast. When we're growing up, you could read Daredevil, 234 or whatever, and now it's like, well, it's number 6, volume 8, and it's like, how do you keep track of anything? And
sure.
I guess that's kind of me as shaking my cane at the sky because times change. But it's a really tough time to be an independent comic person right now because books just have to fight, and there's so many publishers, there's so many books. Like I think the market would be healthier with about half the books we've got.
I understand what you're saying. I hope, and it seems like we are developing a readership, though, that comes to the creator-owned stuff and doesn't care about the big two.
True. I mean, that's always kind of what I've been. And I also think the more, like you, as a creator, you need the floppies to pay the monthly electrical bill and the power bill and put food on the plate, but the real money is in the trades. But the challenge is to get to the trades.
Absolutely.
That's the great thing about Chew now because, we've got 12 trades, and, by the time we were in the latter half, it's an accordion effect. People are always discovering stuff. And there's, you've got the floppy readers, you've got the trade readers, you've got the digital, you've got the hardcover, you've got the binge readers who wait until a series is over. There's still people discovering Chew.
Sure.
And that's not to sound cynical because it's my baby and I love it, but I also didn't want it to die. I want to return to the Chew world once in a while, so it's not just this old dusty book. And from a financial standpoint, more people discover it, and the backstock will keep selling.
Sure. No, I understand, and God, man, absolutely, and I'm glad you and Rob were able to come up with this amazing concept and everything, and benefit from it. That's terrific, and I would imagine too, it helps make it easier to do the other books that you want to do as well. At least try them out, and then you never know. You might hit gold again. I mean,
I mean, Chew's given me a freedom that most creators don't have, which is real nice. I mean, we were kind of smart with the money when the money was flowing, and
cool.
It's opened. Like I have a lot of permanent doors open, which is great. But it's also weird the doors it didn't open. Like when Chew ended, I thought, well, I'll do some big two work for a while, and tried to bring Rob over for like a Spider-Man or a Deadpool, or I knew Plastic Man was a long shot, but the big two, Chew's pedigree didn't matter. Eisner's didn't matter. Sales numbers didn't matter. They're a completely different world, and I sort of had to reconcile. All right, well, I guess I'm going to be an indie guy.
Interesting. I'm nodding. I understand. Yeah, I mean, again, well, and it, maybe, and it's funny because obviously so much of your formative years were with, Wildstorm, and then seeing the transition to DC and everything. I guess they're just set up to be the structure that they are. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a place to do their characters, and obviously then there's a few people in charge to do it their way, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to. It's like a grass is always greener. It's like, boo-hoo, Marvel won't hire me. But then I talk to some Marvel people, but they're like, but you can do whatever you want. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I made some goals when Chew ended, and a lot of them were based on other people making decisions that I had no control over, and it was really frustrating. And once I decided, well, hell with that, I'm just going to do my own thing, where I have total control, it's life's gotten a lot better.
I understand, man, and I'm glad you're in a position to be able to make those, call those shots and everything, and have it work out for you. And I think a lot of creative people in this time when I do think there's this democratization of media, and it's really hitting everything. Because believe me, I say that from a podcasting/broadcasting standpoint too.
Oh yeah, you can't watch you really have to pick what you consume because there's so much out there, and there's, are you going to subscribe to Hulu, or are you going to have Netflix? Maybe you've got them both. Maybe you got Amazon Prime, but you don't have this. And it's like, it used to be, maybe everyone watches this show and not anymore. You go to your corners and, pick what you consume, whether it's TV or music or, comics or whatever.
And I would imagine, too, from a creator-owned standpoint, it's that much harder to go, hey, check this out. I mean, you can't come out with Out of Darkness and say, hey, it's, it's kind of a Star Trek-y thing, but it's not, don't worry, not infringing on anybody. But if you like that, you might like this. And you get that a lot. Or, genre splicing as well of, Space Hero meets sci-fi Western and things like that.
Well, I can, and I'm not a natural salesman. I don't care if you walk away from a show, without giving me money. But without even trying, I can hand sell Outer Darkness like crazy. The problem is, how do you get the word out, when there's 300 new books a month?
Yep.
You're a pebble on a beach.
All right. So when you started with Chew, how did you get awareness on Chew? Was it just because there were less books on the shelf?
I don't know that there were. I mean, Chew was a freak. Just like Walking Dead is, just like Saga is, just those are bigger freaks. And I think Chew kind of led the groundwork, at least for a book like Saga. But there was no expectations for Chew. I mean, I remember announcing it at Image, and they had a lot of other books they were hot on. That they're like, oh, here's this book, blah blah blah, it's great. Here's this book. Oh yeah, here's this book, Chew. And I had only hired Rob for 5 issues. I thought, it'll pay itself off eventually, and then maybe I'll do 5 more with a different artist, and maybe over the course of 15 years, I can tell it, and I'll probably never make any money, but hopefully it'll be like a cult thing. And it was just the right book at the right time, and I don't know. I still don't know how it happened.
Okay. Do you have a master comic shop list? Do you call shops and say, hey, I got a new series?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't do anything to promote this. I don't even think I was on Twitter at the time. It just
certainly not Chew. No, I think Chew definitely. It was around, I guess, but yeah, you're right about.
Yeah, it wasn't as prevalent, but
right.
I mean. It was just the right book at the right time, and now I can look back and be like, well, I should have, I can understand why it's sort of a hit internationally, because food is literally universal to the human experience.
Sure.
But I didn't pitch it that way, and I didn't think about it this way, but now, because I do a lot of traveling, I mean, I choose in 12 languages, so I take advantage of as many foreign shows as I can.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And, it doesn't matter what country you're from. You've had a delicious meal. You've had something that's disgusting. You've had something that didn't sit right. And there's a universality to Chew that there isn't in a lot of other books. But
sure.
Of course, I didn't pitch that. I didn't think about that until after the fact. That's just like, oh, well, that was, unintentionally smart of me.
I understand. That's fantastic, man. That's great. Well, truly, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You're a talented writer, and again, I think a book like Outer Darkness certainly shows that as well. And Bermuda sounds cool, so that's great. But any fun adventures from your international tour this past year?
Well, I went to Poland, Malta, and Singapore. I did one October, November, December. And, if I go that far, I'm going to stay a few extra days. So we're talking,
sure.
We're talking at least a week at each place. And I had been to Poland twice before. And the cool thing about shows is they beget other shows. You know, you'll meet someone and they're like, would you consider going to this place? Yes, I would. And I'd been to Poland twice, and it's like, well, you know, they invited me to a third show in a city I'd never been. It's like, well, I've been there twice. I'd rather go somewhere else, but it's the only invite I got. And then Poland Malta and Singapore happened in rapid succession. And it's like, well, wow. I guess I'm doing all three. And
interesting.
I've never had, you know, I've gotten sick on a plane. There's been screw ups here and there, but I've never had any trip I regret it. I just love it. You know, even if like the Malta show was kind of small, but you know, maybe you just meet 10 or 20 fans who love your book, but you know, you're in a different part of the world and you're meeting somebody who never thought they'd see you.
That's amazing. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's the other thing. That's why I do a lot, like, you know, now that I'm not doing Batman, or, you know, now that, you know, I'm not doing Batman and Choose 3 Years Dead, the American invites are a little fewer and far between. And, you know, if I have to pick between, you know, Detroit or Cleveland Con versus Singapore, you know, I'm going to go to Singapore. You know, as a writer, you don't really make that much. You know, I can't do commissions.
Right.
So I'm selling $10 trades, and you know, the most I'm going to make is, you know, a few $100 per show. So if I'm going to make a few $100, make it in Singapore. Don't make it in Detroit. So, I've been, you know, I talked to all, because I control the Chew files because I did all the production.
Okay.
So when France needs files for volume 11, you know, they come to me, not to Image. So I get to know all my publishers, and you know, let them know, hey, if you need me for anything, I'm happy to go. And I'd go to even more places if Rob was a traveler, but wow. You know, Rob likes to work.
Understood. Yes.
You know, which is good to have in a partner. But you know, they're like, well, Portugal wants you to come out, but they want both of you. And Rob's like, oh, you know, I've got 3 kids and deadlines. It's like, damn you and your work ethic.
Wow, that's cool. Like, what other, you know, names were at, like, Malta or Poland? I mean, all 3 really. Like, yeah, who else?
Well, this was funny because, you know, I've been in comics forever, and you know, you sort of you acquire friends at every show, and sure. You know, you sort of erroneously assume you know everyone. And at Poland, it's a town called Łódź, but it's spelled Lodz, like loads. But it's called Łódź. John Higgins was there.
Oh, great!
And you know, we had never met, and we just hit it off like great. Like, damn, how come I haven't known you for the last 20 years? Because you're the greatest guy.
That's cool.
And then he was in Malta.
Oh, that's great.
So, you know, I got to meet and befriend this guy, and then, you know, hang out, and then, you know, it's weird because there are certain people who do more traveling than others, and I think there's, you know, a lot of people have deadlines, and maybe, you know, maybe they're just sitting at their desk and they don't want the adventure, maybe. But like Ron Mars and I have crossed paths in all kinds of corners of the world, and we went on safari together in Africa, and there was in Malta. So, you know, I got to hang out with Ron Mars.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. I always like seeing Ron. Absolutely. Yeah. That's cool. Am
I
right? Higgins, didn't John Higgins do Button Man? Because I know he did a great Legends of the Dark Knight. Button Man was like a great little crime European album.
Oh yeah, no idea. You know, I know him, you know, from Watchmen and, you know, you know, Vertigo stuff.
Right, of course. That's cool.
Jesus. Let's see, who else was at Malta? Mike Collins, Ron Mars, John Higgins, and you know, and then sort of regional people, and then
sure,
you know, people that American folks may not know. Because we only read American comics.
Well, you know, I dip into, you know, some Belgian comics, and you know, I good Italian comics. I try, you know, things like that. I'm always like interested in what's happening at Angoulême and Lucca and things, you know, festivals like that. And I'm always looking for other European shows as well. So this is great to hear about, like, you know, or you know, other not just European, but obviously in the case of Singapore. But that's cool. That's
have you
amazing.
read Echo?
Who did Echo again?
It's Alessandro Barbucci, published by Delcourt.
No, I did not. No.
I think there's 7 volumes. It's my favorite French comic book. It's about a girl who kind of can possess people, and it's French, so it's a little bit sexy, and it's got some kind of like risque comedy in it, and this guy draws architecture like you couldn't believe. And
oh, wow.
The frustrating thing is it's only available in English digitally.
Wow.
I know Augie DeBleek and he's the only other guy I know in America who's read it, and we both just, rave over the thing.
And who sells it digitally with the English translation?
Comixology.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's EKHO, and I highly recommend it as just a beautiful, beautiful book.
That sounds great. That's fantastic.
I think they put out, like three albums maybe every 2 years, so it comes out pretty regularly.
That's cool. Well, I think Augie's got great taste as well. I'm a big fan. He and I go back to when he was podcasting. We all started in 2005. Back in the day.
Yeah, I've known Augie for was he Newsarama? Who did he used to do reviews?
Comic Book Resources.
That's right.
Pipeline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And still, by the way, for listeners,
he's still Pipeline.
I was going to say exactly. He, if you're not, every now and then I'll retweet one of his articles from his Pipeline blog. But yeah, Augie is still a great voice in comics and stuff, and especially as we lost Tom Spurgeon and stuff. And if you're looking for another good critical thinker, I definitely recommend Augie DeBleek.
Yeah. So. And Augie is really into Euro comics lately. Like he writes a lot about Belgium and French comics. So you're looking to sort of expand your horizons that way. He's a good person to follow.
Yeah, and truly, man, I really feel the last 20 years, and especially now that it is 2020, and I literally did come back and reading comics like in 98 or 99. So, I really do feel, as much as I still enjoy a good DC and Marvel story, I really do kind of am always interested in what's happening in the other genres. And that's, I think that's, the exciting thing about the current trend and everything. And again, I think it's been a 20-year trend.
Yeah. Superheroes are great, but I don't need as much superheroes as out there, and there is so much other stuff out there that you can literally find anything you want. And so I end up reading a lot of Image,
sure,
a lot of Oni, a lot of IDW. I know Boom is doing some good stuff.
Boom's doing a lot of great stuff lately. Absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't read that much of it. I probably should. I think the last thing I read from Boom is Coda, and I met Mateus, the artist.
Okay.
I met him in Uruguay, and we actually, after a show one night, I got spirited away in a car, and it was very freaking mysterious, and we got taken to a lair of an actual vampire, and it was me and Eduardo Riso wondering if we were going to survive the night, and it was this filthy vampire hovel, looked like What We Do in the Shadows, with dishes everywhere and just dirty as hell, and arcane stuff and devil books and pictures of naked witches and crow claws.
Wow.
Just crazy stuff. And everyone said this guy's a vampire, and he said he was a vampire, and we went along with it, and it was it was a crazy night.
You never say prove it in that situation. Absolutely not. Good Lord. Wow. That's amazing.
That's the kind of weird shit that you end up like, here I am in Uruguay with the genius artist of 100 Bullets. And,
yes, I love Eduardo. He's such a sweetheart. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a gentleman.
Guy.
Like a legit
He really is a gentleman, yes.
And
he's always been incredibly kind, yes.
And the dishes were so dirty that they were cooking meat, very like sausages on a grill, and just kind of throwing it on a plate, and we were all just eating it like animals in this vampire lair. Such a weird scene.
That's fantastic. There's a great old-time radio adventure serial called I Love Adventure. Or I Love a Mystery, excuse me. and they go to a Costa Rican. There's a story called Temple of Vampires, and they go to a Costa Rican temple where there are living vampires and stuff. And it was, oh my god! So that it does, it kind of doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure as you get further and further into that area, sure, why not?
Yeah,
oh my god,
that was one of my weirder travel experiences.
Wow, that's fantastic. Did he say he loved Chew? Did you know? Did he know everybody? Was he obviously a comic fan?
He didn't speak English very well. It was a lot of us kind of nodding, and so yeah, I think he did, but I don't know.
That's amazing. Too funny, John. All right, I like it. Well, I know, like you said, you got some stuff that's on the burner and stuff that's coming out in the months ahead. And when you are able to talk, come back.
Yeah, there is one really big thing. Like I said, I miss the Chew world, and I don't want to abandon it. But that's all I'll say for now.
There you go. I like it. Excellent, John. No, great stuff, man. And truly, I want to delve into more about your Wildstorm years and then some of the specific books that you've worked with.
We can come back and you can grill me on the memory is not what it used to be, especially in those days. But I mean, it was wild. I can remember one time Jim would throw parties, and he had an Arabian Nights party, and he rented a camel, and everyone could ride a camel around, and it's like, who does that?
That's amazing. Jesus. Well, that's, like I know Billy Tucci has told me in the past before where he had a party on an aircraft carrier. And it's like, okay.
Wow.
And again, it's back in those large-ass days of all the all the image imprints and stuff. And so it doesn't surprise me that, Jim had that kind of money to throw around. That's amazing.
I missed this, but I would hear stories where they'd be like, well, complete this deadline, 19-year-old, talented kid, and we'll buy you a Toyota Celica or Corolla or whatever.
Wow.
And they wouldn't hit the deadline. They were making so much stupid money. They were young, they were dumb, and that was the end of the boom. But it was and I came in, and like I said, it was still company credit cards for drinks and strip clubs on Fridays, and still crazy and inappropriate. But it wasn't the new car money or buy a mansion with this number one issue kind of stuff. It was starting to fade.
The party was starting to go away. I understand. Jeez, too funny. That's amazing. Well, yeah, John, come back and we'll talk more about this.
All right, end of part 1.
That's good. I'm going to leave it right there.
John Layman, look for The Man Who Effed Up Time from Aftershock Comics from John. Also look for the Outer Darkness Chew crossover that's coming up very soon. Sounds hilarious, and I know there's more stuff coming from John as well. So when he says more to come in part 2, end of part 1, he's not kidding. I hope we get back to a new conversation with John in just a couple months, hopefully, and have him back to tell more great stories about his career and what's coming up for him in the future as well. John Layman, I hope you enjoyed it today. It was all brought to you by Aftershock Comics, and as I just mentioned, The Man Who Effed Up Time, a brand new Aftershock book that John Layman is doing. A lot of fun, and it's going to be great. It will be there with new books as well from people like Mark Sable and his new series God Killers, and Zach Thompson's new series Undone by Blood. And consider those books along with your other Aftershock favorites, whether it's Animosity from Marguerite Bennett, or Baby Teeth with Donny Cates, A Walk Through Hell from Garth Ennis and Gordon Suzuka, Jimmy's Bastards, I love Jimmy's Bastards, another great series from Garth Ennis, Paul Jenkins, Tim Seeley, Cullen Bunn, Matthew Klickstein, Stephanie Phillips, so many great Aftershock creators that have already put their mark on the Aftershock logo and delivered amazing stories, really fun stories, and interesting concepts that are new to the comic book shelf, but definitely things that you should be aware of and make part of your comic reading experience. Go to their website. I'm sure you're going to find a book that you love over there. You'll get full story descriptions, preview pages, and how to order these books with the diamond codes through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon, our companion episode that came out already yesterday. A great look back at the career of Victor Gorlick from Archie Comics. A wonderful conversation I had with Victor in 2018, along with a new perspective with a guy that he worked with for 20 years, Mike Pellerito, one of the great execs at Archie as well. And it's a great time to look at Archie from the past and also currently what's going on at Archie, and also one of the major forces behind Archie Comics in the last 60 years, Victor Gorlick. Pretty amazing career. I hope you give yourself a chance to listen to those great conversations. And more coming as well from February. It's going to be a great month. Of course, I'm going to be ending the month, and along with a lot of the March Fair, the last weekend in February is C2E2, and I will be there, and I'll be moderating 2 panels. One with the great Rich Coase, Sven Gulli of MeTV, a wonderful career, and it's great to have Rich back and do a panel. I'm hoping to talk to him before our panel in, just 2 weeks before C2E2. I hope to see you at C2E2 in Chicago at McCormick Place. Please say hi. And if you're bearing the cold like the rest of us, if you see me, give me a chance to thank you for listening to Word Balloon all these years. It's our 15th anniversary. It's coming up March 10th. May 10th. I can't believe it. And look forward to sharing it with you and some of the other great Word Balloon conversations of the last 15 years. I've been having so many great new conversations that, with the exception, of course, of Victor's passing, I haven't had a chance to go back and represent some of these other great conversations from along these 15 years. You'll be hearing more of those in the days and weeks ahead here at Word Balloon, along with great new conversations as well. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2020.